everyone, and thank you all for tuning in for another video in our series. Today's video will be a follow-up to Jessica's first video last week on adolescence, because there's a lot to think about when we're adapting the way we think about behavior and behavior management with our teens. So if you missed that first one, you can go ahead and check it out. Jessica covered how to use special praise, attending to behaviors, ignoring behaviors, and also using punishment with teens and how that might look a little bit different than what we've talked about so far. And then today I'll highlight something a little bit different, and that's some tips on how to communicate with your teen and avoid maybe some pitfalls and also avoid some conflict. So let's start with an important skill, and that's compromise. As your child becomes older and becomes a teenager, their desire for making their own choices increases by 100-fold. They develop a real need for independence, and getting a chance to safely explore that independence will really help them help them develop skills that they'll need for adulthood. And some of the things that you might see your teen wanting to make their own choices about is things like what to wear or what to eat or what to do in their free time, who to hang out with. But it might also be bigger things like opinions about major topics like religion or politics or education. And sometimes it might even seem like whatever choices they want to make are directly and purposefully in contrast to the choices that you would make, which could lead to a lot of conflict between you and your teen, but that's perfectly normal. So to help reduce some of that conflict, compromise, that first skill I'm going to talk about, is really essential. As the parent, it's important for you to ask yourself, what are you okay with being flexible on? For example, can clothing choices be something you let go, or can some messiness in their own room be allowed? There's no right or wrong answer here. The idea is just that it can really help reduce conflict if you allow independence in some areas. So it's important for you to ask yourself, what are those areas that you can be flexible on? For me, I think I would recommend especially some areas where there's no risk to their safety or health. Those would be good ones to consider allowing some flexibility in expectations. And now you may be worried about compromise because you might think that then your teen will just expect you to bend all the rules and start bending them more and more and more. But really, from our experience, that's not likely at all. Compromising actually has a lot more benefits than it has drawbacks. And one of those benefits is that you're directly modeling to your teen how compromising works between two adults who have different opinions, but can reach a compromise without fighting and without arguing, which is a really important social skill to have as you move into adulthood. And then a second benefit is that by demonstrating that you're willing, or what you're willing to compromise on, you're actually likely to also reinforce the rules that you're not willing to compromise on. And kind of setting clear expectations, saying something like, yes, I'm willing to compromise on how your room looks or how you do your hair, but I'm not willing to compromise on things like social media use or tattoos or piercings or whatever it is that you personally are not willing to compromise on. And then the third benefit is just that your teen is much more likely to see you as an ally and to view your relationship more positively when you compromise, which can be really helpful when there are inevitably times where you have to stay firm in your rules. And then in addition to compromising, I also want to talk about the skill of negotiating, which is really important for managing teen behavior. Compromise is the outcome, but the negotiation is the process of getting there. And there are a few ways to make that go smoothly and hopefully without arguments or yelling or anyone being upset. So teens are at the stage of life where they no longer need to just be told what to do, like kids might be. And part of fostering their development is giving them some input on things in a very supportive environment. So here are just some tips for negotiation. First, you'll want to listen to your teen's point of view without interrupting. And that part is really key. Let them say their piece and really listen. Don't simply wait for your turn to talk. That's what we call active listening. So even though your teen is saying things that might be irrational or naive, that's okay. Those are normal parts of being a teen and figuring out life. And you'll probably have the urge to jump in and try to address that, but really try not to. Again, just listen. Just do your best to listen and really hear them. And then second, show and model a lot of respect to your teen. Again, you may think some of their views are silly or naive, but that's okay. Think of this just as an opportunity to learn how your kid thinks about the world and realize that the way they think now will really likely change and mature as they grow up. And often, when you do really listen, you'll probably be surprised by a lot of the reasonable views and requests that they have. So, show respect by being judgment free, by avoiding any negative body language like rolling your eyes or shaking your head, um, because those will all be seen and perceived and will just lead to frustration. And then third, keep your focus on the present. Don't draw back on past experiences that will negate what your teen is asking for or saying. Going down that rabbit hole will completely derail any productive negotiation and will also make it feel like to your teen that you're not really listening. And then related to that, also keep the focus on the topic that you're talking about. If you're talking about curfew, don't bring up a messy room or their choice of clothing. Really stay on topic. This would really go against rule number one, which was the active listening. We want to make sure we're staying on the topic that your teen is trying to communicate with you about. And then the final step, when it's your turn to talk in the negotiation process, is to give suggestions or other options about how to handle the situation from your point of view or what you're comfortable with. And you can either give a number of different options that your team can choose from, at least 2 or 3, or you might open up for more negotiation by saying something like, I hear you. It seems like you want this. Have you considered it in this way, or have you considered this option? And what's nice about doing negotiation in this way is that teens are much more likely to agree when you provide choices because it supports that need for autonomy and independence. Now, having negotiations like this can be hard, especially if it's a sensitive topic that both of you have strong feelings about or that you've argued about in the past. So a good tip is to start trying to use these conversation skills first with topics that are really low stakes. So, for example, picking a restaurant for dinner or which movie to watch. This way, you'll just improve your communication skills and it'll be easier to use them when you're feeling more stressed during those sensitive or more high stakes conversations that you might have. And then lastly, before I end, I also want to mention that part of supporting your teen's need for independence is to help them generate solutions to their own problems instead of giving them the answer like you may have done when they were younger. And to do that, you can walk them through a few problem-solving steps. So I'll just lay those out really quickly as well. The first step in problem solving is to have them lay out what the problem is and be specific. So you're not doing a lot of talking here. You're just like prompting them to do these steps. So have them really describe what the problem is and, like I said, be as specific as possible about that. And then second, have them come up with all kinds of different strategies or solutions to handle the problem. There's no right or wrong answers here at this step. So again, withhold any judgment because this is simply brainstorming time. Saying, the problem is I got a bad grade in school, and one of the solutions is maybe I just don't care about school. That's obviously probably not the solution we're going to go with. We're just brainstorming all possible solutions at this point. And then as a third step for problem solving, have your team think through the possible consequences of each solution. So here's where you kind of weed out the bad solutions or the most likely to succeed solutions. And then fourth, the last step in our problem solving process is to have them select the solution that's the best given the consequences that they identified in the step before. So just figuring out what would be best for them in that moment. And then after your teen has picked a solution, you might also offer to practice. For example, if the solution to a problem is talking to their teacher about it, you could offer to practice what your teen will say if that's something they're nervous about. So that was it. We covered, compromising, negotiation, and problem solving, all very important skills when handling behaviors or rules with teens, which both kind of supports their need for independence, which is really important to support, but it also keeps you in the role of parent as well. So I hope that was helpful. Thank you for tuning in. It was a lot to cover, so if you do want a handout that reviews these steps and gives some examples of how to phrase some of this stuff, check out the link that's posted along with this video. And as always, please leave any comments you have. And also, if you're feeling like you might need more support with any of the skills that we cover in our videos, you can find out what services we offer at galvangrowthgroup.com. Thank you, everyone.